I kind of wanted to do one of a video which is a bit on the serious side. Most of my videos are more tongue in cheek, but this is a bit more about survival. I wanted to talk about debts and getting out of debt and a few things that might be of help. So, first of all, let me start by saying that I do understand and I acknowledge the privilege that that I have in that I was. Let me first start by acknowledging the privilege. I was lucky enough that I was living in a country that has a good. That I'm living in a country that has a social welfare net, and um, I did make the choice to leave welfare, even though that was an option for me to stay in welfare and get help by the government. There were many points in time that I could have asked for government help, but I chose not to. We are going to discuss that when I do a video about my self worth and my self esteem and how all these things were just, yeah, how painful it was to just, yeah. Also, I'm also lucky that I already had an educational background, so I was able to get on my feet faster than other women who are in the same situation might, with no education, might be able to. So, having said that, let's talk about debt. So, we get into debt for different reasons. Sometimes you get into debt because you've had um, just bad luck, honestly. Some people, everything they touch just doesn't work out, and maybe you've not been able to get a job, you have expenses, you have uh, things that happen. Sometimes it's because you maybe took a loan, defaulted, or maybe you lost your job and you've not been able to get back on your feet. So in some countries like Switzerland, for example, when you lose your job, you get 80% of whatever you used to earn for the next 18 months. The problem comes in when you are not earning enough to begin with. So, for example, if your salary was barely enough for you to survive, 80% of barely enough is extremely less than barely enough. So, what happens in cases like this is I don't know, I just feel sometimes it's a case of the money comes in and the money comes out, just like that. Anyway, so, well, you the money comes in, you pay your bills and it's gone, and you have no savings and stuff like that, and so it's easy to get into debt, honestly. I think many people think that people get into debt because they were living beyond their means, or because something is wrong with them, or because they're irresponsible. But sometimes, and I think sometimes it depends on the situations. You can be in a relationship and then you are sharing your bills 50-50, and the relationship ends, and all of a sudden you have to support the relation. You have to pay all your bills by yourself. That can be hard for some people. That can be nearly impossible for others. But then there are also circumstances that you can't control, like if your partner dies, or if uh, something happens. Things happen, basically. Some things are beyond our control, and sometimes you find yourself in debt. Of course, there's also debt that is ridiculous, because there are people who get into debt just because they want to keep up with the Joneses. And to be honest, I have some of the debts that I got into because I was trying to keep up with the Joneses. At some point in my life, when my daughter was born, I was going through a lot in my life, and people were talking, and there were obviously people who were laughing at me and things like that. And I remember at some point I started buying things like from Zalando. Zalando is a website where you can buy things and then you pay 2 weeks later. And I used to buy things just so I have, a new pair of shoes so that people can see that I'm going out and I'm doing things like that. Just because for me, it kind of started giving me a bit of self-esteem. And sometimes I even used to just buy things even in cash. The little bit of money that I had, I used to spend it buying stuff that I don't need, just because in my mind that was going to help me. Eventually I had a very good Swiss friend who told me, you are doing therapy the wrong way. You're supposed to take that money and pay your health insurance and go to a therapist, because you have very deep issues that you need to be sorting out, instead of um, throwing money at the wrong things, trying to make yourself happy for things that you'll never feel worth it. So what happened was, so I woke up one morning and I decided that, okay, fine, it's time for me to start getting out of debt. So the first thing that I did was acknowledge how much debt I had. And I think it's scary. Sometimes you look at your bills and you're, okay, yeah, I owe the water company, I owe the electricity company, I owe my cell phone bill, I owe credit card. You look at the bills, and when you look at them separately, they all look okay. And then you put them together and you realize that you owe about 3 or 4 months of your salary in debt. So of course this isn't something you can pay together. So the first thing that I did was basically just acknowledge how much debt I had. And when I looked at it, honestly, I was shocked. I'm not going to say the amount, but it was a lot. It was almost, no, it was actually more than I currently make in a year. And that was a lot. And then the next step was, after about a week of meditating on just how deep in debt I am. And this is the debt that had already reached the collections office. So there were some which were on their way there. And so after I looked at this, a lot of it was health insurance and some social charges which I had not paid. And yeah, so there was all that. And I started looking at them one by one. And I learned a lot about Switzerland. I learned a lot about Switzerland in that most people, they just want their money paid. Sorry, the lighting again. So most people, they just wanted their money paid. If you call them and explain your situation and ask for an arrangement, many of them do accept. And I think 99% of the people that I called accepted an arrangement of payment. And that's what I did. Then, once I made that arrangement of payment, I kind of overdid it, because now you owe 20 people, and then if you start breaking it down, whatever you're making into 20, you're not paying anything. And I did not want to default on any of the arrangements. So what I would advise, which is not what I did, but this is what I would advise now, is take one bill. I would take the smallest bill. Decide if you want to start with the smallest or with the biggest, and then you take that one and make an arrangement of payment for that one, shortest possible, pay it, finish it, move to the next bill. Because if you say that you're going to take all these bills and spread them across, then you're trying to pay. If you do not have an extra 1,000 francs a month, it doesn't matter how many times you break this 1,000 francs. Just get something that's realistic. So if you're able to finish pay, if you make an arrangement of payment of, let's say, paying 100 francs on something per month, and in a month, this month you end up having 200 extra, just pay the extra and finish it, so that you can move on to the next bill. So that's what I did. That was the first thing that I did. The second thing was pay whatever you have. So the ones that I had an arrangement of payment, I was paying them like that. And the ones that I did not have an arrangement of payment, I was paying, even when it was 20 francs extra that I had, I was paying for those ones. And I was just making sure that there's movement. For me, it was, I was like a hamster. I just needed to see movement. I needed to see every single time that I asked for, that I do my calculations, I'm saying I am 20 francs less, 100 francs less, 1,000 francs less. And before I knew it, I was 200 francs. Actually, I ended up overpaying, but that was because there was a bit of mix up in calculations. Then the next thing I would say would be, well, so this would be the third thing I would say is look for help. There are organizations out there that can help you. I know in Geneva, for example, there's a service that helps you with paying your debts and then you pay back. If you can consolidate all your debts, if you're in a position where you're able to consolidate all your debts and then you have 1 monthly payment that you can make, that would be the ideal situation. But of course, most people will not agree. Most places will not agree for you to do this. But then, if that's an option, do that. I think people mistake debts. There's good debts and bad debts, I guess. There is necessary debt and unnecessary debt. When you have like loans of something that you had invested in and then maybe the investment didn't work out, that's that falls in the category of bad luck. But if you have a loan and you're servicing it with proceeds from an investment you made, and it's comfortable, that's okay. That's perfect. You're doing how the economy is supposed to work. That's the reason why we have banks. So I feel like the first thing you need to learn is what are the good debts, what are the bad debts, and but now in this video we're talking about the bad debts, things that are hindering you from, because when you have debts, some places won't even hire you. I remember there are places that I was looking for a job and they would not even they asked me for the proof that I don't have any debt, and then that was a hindrance to me getting a job. And in Geneva, for example, you don't get an apartment, you don't get, there are so many things that you don't get. Now you don't even get your residence permit renewed if you have debt. So it's something that keeps hindering you or your progress, and you need to, well, you do need to worry about it. It's not something that you can just say, oh, I don't care anymore, it's life. No, it's not. There are people out there living with zero debts, and normalizing having debts is I don't know, I just think it's ridiculous. The last thing I would say, I'll probably remember a few more things later on, but the last thing I would say is celebrate the small victories. So this every time that I manage to pay off 1,000, I would buy myself a bottle of champagne. I know, ridiculous, because then now I'm wasting 20 francs to get a half. But I would buy myself a bottle of champagne, but that's because I really, really love champagne. I really do. And I used to say, this is me, I'm celebrating. And I would just buy it and invite a friend, and we would pop a bottle of champagne. Most of the time, most of my friends never knew why. I mean, now if you're watching this and I ever invited you for champagne, now you know why we were popping champagne. And I just used to tell, oh no, there's no reason, I'm not celebrating anything. I'm just popping champagne because I feel like it. But I kind of used to feel like I've achieved something. And there is no better feeling than that moment when you have gotten out of debt completely. So how did I manage? So first thing was looking for ways of getting extra money. So I did everything from looking for extra jobs. I don't know, I just became very creative. I'm a very good cook, so I started cooking for a few people here and there. I know people who know me will not believe this, but I was cleaning people's houses. I don't even like cleaning my own house, so you can imagine how much that was hurting me to do. Um, and just I had a daughter, so I could not deny myself 100% everything, but I gave up on small luxuries, like traveling. I would look for local things to do instead of having to travel. Try to find just extra things. There were websites where I could get short jobs. I even did a bit of online work. Yeah, then there was obviously Airbnb, which was a horrible idea, but I did it. I think the biggest chunk of my debts were actually paid from my Airbnb days, which I'm forever going to be grateful for that. It got me into a lot of trouble, but I'm kind of glad that I did it when I did it, and I was able to get myself out of debt. But the minute I finished paying off that debt, I was like, goodbye. I need my space. I need my privacy. I'm happy. Um, and so that worked out for me. It worked out quite well, and I was able to get out of debt. I was also able to get some charities who agreed to pay an amount um, of my debts, which after a lot of interviews and a lot of me promising them that I'm not going to get back into debt. So now I'm actually quite careful with how I spend money, because I'm like, if I find myself in debt again, nobody's gonna help me. I can't even feel, I wouldn't even feel right asking for help, because I know other people who need that help more than I do. And they've never had it. So I'm quite privileged about the fact that I got that help. Um, I also just basically stopped caring about what I'm missing out on. So I became, I would say, a bit of a recluse, because I didn't have to go for every party. I didn't have to go for every birthday. I didn't have to dress the way people dress. I did not have to buy the latest anything. I did not need to pay anything extra. I just lived on the bare minimum and tried to save as much as possible and tried to just basically get moving. Um, Now, if you do not have all this, if you do not have the alternatives, I think what I would say, because I've met people who you look at it and you're like, there is absolutely nothing, there's nothing that is humanly possible for this person to do that she's not doing. What I would say is just be realistic. The first thing you can do is avoid adding in onto the debt that you have, if it's possible. If it's not, it's not. Because if your debt is electricity bills and you're still living in an apartment where you have to have electricity, what are you going to now live without electricity? So it's just a matter of checking on what you can avoid to increase, what you can avoid um, to increase the debts that you have. But otherwise, if you absolutely have nothing and there's nowhere else for you to start, then all I can say is don't feel bad about it, because when you feel bad about it, then you depress yourself. You feel you're worthless, your self esteem lowers, and you will not get out of it. So, the best way to get out of a bad situation is to work towards getting out of it. And how are you going to work towards getting out of something when you're already feeling bad about it? So also be realistic. If you don't have, you don't have. But it's not I don't have, but I don't feel like making an effort. It's I have looked at every single possible effort and I don't have it. That's for me. I think that would be what you can do. Um, just wait, and a time will come. Just stay alive long enough for the time to come. Stay positive long enough for the time to come that you will be able to get out of it. But then as soon as you're able to, if yesterday you survived on 10 francs and tomorrow I give you 15, then now you have 5 francs more than you need because you know that you can survive on 10, and use that 5 to pay for part of your debt. So just that's all I can say. And I wish you luck in all this. So, my people, don't forget to subscribe. And don't forget to keep checking because I keep posting, I keep talking. I'm becoming a wise 40-year-old. You need to tap into my wisdom, my people. Love ya.